Greetings from Chicago and welcome back to the Women in Design video series with Chykalophia. On each video, we spotlight talented and inspired women in design community from print to digital, illustrator to animator, and others in between. My name is Ari Krzyzak. I'm the co-founder and chief creative officer at Chykalophia. We're a digital brand consultancy helping women-led businesses build proper brand foundation, strong communities, and lasting relationship through brand strategy, design, and web solution. Today we'll be chatting with Vanessa Goh. She's actually my accountability partner, which I have been working with maybe over a year now, I think, right, Vanessa? And yeah. She is the she is the creative director and founder of Vangoh Creative. We'll chat with her about how to start owning your role as a business owner when you run your own design studio or maybe lead a creative agency. We'll also discuss what system do you need to put in place so that you can fire yourself as a designer, big time, and hire yourself as the business leader in your company. Vanessa Goh, founder and creative force behind Vangoh Creative, brings with her 10 years of marketing experience working with small and medium-sized businesses while freelancing on the side before launching her own studio. The blend of marketing and sales knowledge combined with the ability to relate to and empathize with the challenges business owners facing touches everything we do at, what they do at Vangoh Creative and allows them to produce designs that work. So Vanessa, welcome to our interview series. I'm so glad that you can, be in this particular series. And honestly, I'm super excited to chat with you today and hear all about your creative processes and really learn about how do you really fire yourself as a designer and take that lead as a business owner, because honestly, I'm still kind of figuring those out and navigating around that as well. So I think everybody will really take a lot of insight from this particular interview from you. So I can't wait to just share that. I would love to just kind of get started with the first question for you. You're definitely not a typical designer, right? I think when we talked a while back, you told me that you didn't went to school to get an art or design degree. In fact, you learned everything on your own. So can you share with us a little bit about your background and how did you fall into design?
Yeah. Wow. It's going to be quite a bit of a story. So I would say I was a very creative person when I was young. I grew up in Malaysia. And I always decorated, my school boards, the sports day flyers and things. But being in Asia, I did grow up with the impression that art is not going to make you money and it's not going to pay the bills. So I was a bit lost at that time. So when I got to college, I just sort of took a IT and accounting course, as, just a general, I think it's like the Asian stereotype, right? Girls go do accountancy, guys engineering, doctor. So I did something like that. But as I did that, I realized, oh my God, this is not something I can do at all. I just suck at it. So I still wasn't sure. So in the end, I went to a general sort of degree. So I did mass communications. So I did not have a design background at all. Although in my sort of communications degree, I was exposed to sort of the creative field, I guess, of journalism and advertising, but not really design. So when I graduated, I actually ended up in a marketing job. So I started doing marketing for small businesses. Mm-hmm. And because I guess I always gravitated to the creative stuff, I would redesign flyers in Word, in Microsoft Word. And that was how I got started. They had Word documents and, oh my God, publisher documents and Excel. And I would actually design those and, sort of just organize and make things better. And slowly, I started to pick up Photoshop, learn how to make WordPress websites, all through sort of, because as a marketing person, you kind of have to know all these things anyway. But instead of hiring another agency, I would tell my boss, if you give me about a month to play with it, I think I can make you one, So, and that's exactly how I got started. So I was in a marketing job and I just gravitated towards everything creative. I loved it and I just did it for fun. So I think my my employers saw that and just sort of
Mm-hmm.
let me do my own thing, and they actually helped me like pay for short courses like in Illustrator and things like that, and actually bought the software for me. So through my career, that was actually how my design thing got started. So I started when I started work, and that was how I learned how to build websites, how to use Photoshop, InDesign, and all that, you know. So through the years of working in marketing, so I always worked in marketing before, prior to starting my, you know, my own company, my own design company. So I was in marketing the whole time, but I ended up just building websites in-house, doing all their collaterals myself. So I was like, you know, the one person that could do everything, and they didn't have to hire an agency to do any of those. And that's how I learned. So they gave me, you know,
Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough that my employers gave me sort of the time and trusted in me, and often I've sort of delivered and improved their businesses, and obviously made it look a lot better, a lot more modern, brought it online when it's not. So that was actually how it happened.
Wow. Wow.
And I
Honestly,
think,
cool.
yeah, it's strange, but I guess in a way that, I guess if you are creatively inclined, you will end up where you're meant to be, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. And I sort of ended up where I'm meant to be. And
That's
then 5
fantastic.
years ago, yeah, sorry, should I
No, no.
continue?
Yeah, continue.
Yeah,
Feel free to do
okay.
that.
Okay. So 5 years ago, we moved back to KL. So I was in Australia the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
working, and my husband decided to open a restaurant in KL. So we moved back here, and I found myself in a position wondering if I should work in KL for a
Mm-hmm.
company
Mm-hmm.
or do my own thing. So I decided to do my own thing in the end, because fortunately for me, the last job that I had in Australia, I retained. So I brought the job online with me,
Yeah.
and that was sort of my first retainer, my first client.
Yeah.
That was my job anyway, so I didn't feel I had to get a client at that time. But with that, I started freelancing by myself,
That's really nice.
and
And
that was actually the catalyst. Yeah.
oh, okay, cool. I didn't realize that you were in Venice, but that's perfectly cool. I actually am curious in terms of like how you get started with your own creative studio or agency. Because you mentioned that you finally moved to KL, which is Kuala Lumpur, right? Um,
Yeah.
and you started doing freelancing, and I feel like almost all of us started with doing a lot of freelancing job at first, and then slowly moving into building our own creative studio or agency. So for you particularly, Vanessa, why did you
Yeah.
decide to build a creative studio or agency, and what really motivates you to do that?
It happened really organically. So I was, I guess I'm still a learning creative, um, and I am very curious. So I love photography, I love website, I love branding, marketing. So I found that I was getting too many jobs that I couldn't handle myself. So organically and just naturally, I started to look for someone to help me. Oh, we've got a new client, and then I needed someone. Um, so I just slowly added team members, uh, you know,
Mm-hmm.
each year, actually, one each year in the business. And now I'm 5 years in the business, and there's six of us. So just slowly as projects come, I think. And I think maybe I should say this as well. A lot of my clients were retainers as well. So I could hire one and then get more projects.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it sort of grew that way.
That's fantastic. Have you encountered like a time where you feel like, okay, I have to hire more than one um, people or one designer, one creative team member in a year? Has that ever happened? It just sounds to me like you always need one additional team member every
Always.
year, but has that ever happened when you feel like, oh, actually, I need two people in my team now?
Yes, I think, in fact, I've got clients that tell me, oh, it's just easy, just hire one more, just hire two more and do a project. But I guess my personality is I'm very risk averse. So I want to grow slowly. And I think maybe because I like to be in control of everything as well. So I don't want to hire a lot of people and then, things go haywire. So
Mm.
I I just sort of made the conscious decision to go one by one. I never actually thought of like, oh, I need to hire two at the same time. So I never wanted to do that. I wanted one to come in, be comfortable, really gel with the team. And then when everything's well and they're blended in, then, the next one. That's
Yeah.
how I sort of felt like. Yeah.
That's really cool. And it honestly does feel to me you have a very like specific processes that you are following in your like process oriented person. So let's talk a little bit about processes and documenting a lot of these processes. Like any good business owners, I feel like you already have these in place. And as you already shared with us earlier, Vanessa, and I personally have seen them, and wow, they are very well organized and detailed. I wonder if you can share with us how can others get started in documenting their own process?
Right. So I think that with processes, the key is you want freedom. So for me, what was really taking up a lot of my time were my emails. I was sort of the gatekeeper, being sort of a team, a creative director of a small team. Everything was still going through me. So main design decisions, concepts, client management. So everything and all the emails, that I get in the day would sort of dictate my day basically, because, things can happen. Somebody wants something immediately. So I realized that I kind of needed to be free if I want to continue to be creative, like if I wanted more time to do concepts. So I think that's when I started to think about the processes. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that the best way to do it is for me at first, is to start writing down, because I like to read and like to write rather than watching videos. I find that I read faster. So I started writing my processes down, and I would just write on like how I reply to emails. And then, if this client says this, how do we respond? So I just started documenting a lot of the things I do. And it didn't happen. I didn't like sit down for a few days and write them out. I sort of started doing it side by side. So as I was replying a real email, I would then, open another document and say, oh, this is how I reply, why I did that. These are a few notes to note about this client. So I
Mm-hmm.
started doing quite a few of that. And then I started to also do client intro videos. So I would have like each of our clients, and there are many, I would do an intro to each of the client and sort of explain who this client is, what we're doing for them, what they do is important, what's the impact they're, trying to, what are they trying to show the world, what are they doing. So I started to basically write down the processes, and eventually I start recording the process as well, because some things are easier to show on screen. And I find that doing this little by little, day by day, eventually after about a year, I finally got to a point where I had enough and I could delegate that to my team members to do, and they're not completely lost and would, sort of make mistakes, because by then everyone's sort of prepped. So everyone's had a very sort of a slow hand down, as they go. So they're shadowing me as I document these.
Mm-hmm.
And then, after a year or half a year, when they're ready to do certain tasks, I start passing things to them. That's the key, I guess, delegating tasks, but slowly, not the whole role at once, but one by one, sort of giving it to them.
Okay. When you start like delegating all these tasks to your team members, what was their, I guess, reaction, or how did they respond to these new documentation and the processes? Were they like, I guess, like very intriguing and following it consistently, or do you feel that they are, using it only as a guide, but they are free to, run with it?
I think the team's actually really happy that there are these guidelines in place, because they are not only processes, they're tutorials, how-tos, and all that as well. So they're really happy it's there, but I always definitely maintain that this is a guideline to follow. I mean, use, like if I reply that email a certain way, I don't expect you to copy exactly what I say, but make
Mm-hmm.
it your own. So it's always a guideline definitely for them. I don't think all these processes are hard rules that they have to be followed exactly to the T.
Mm-hmm.
Almost all my processes explain the why of the process. And I always emphasize that the why is very important. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you know why this is there, then if the situation change, because through time, things change, it may not be relevant anymore if you're reading this like a year later. So
Yeah.
take with it, with a grain of salt, because you're documenting stuff through time and you're not going to be able to just update everything every day.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely a guideline on why we're doing it, and this might change in the future,
Yeah.
is helpful. Yeah, and they like it. I think they like that they get to fall back to a structure and they're not just struggling alone and they don't know
Mm-hmm.
what to do when something happens. And then that's the thing, when you have a team, sometimes if you don't have these in place, what happens is they ask you, and they're
Yeah.
asking you questions every single day. And if you have a lot of team members, it can easily take up quite a huge amount of time in your day just answering questions or teaching them or explaining things to them. But if you have a video or thing, you can just say, okay, go look at that thing, go look at
Mm-hmm.
that video, and if you have any questions, then come back. So you
Yeah.
kind of like, settle, save a lot of time that way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you mentioned that you did a ton of tutorials, how-tos, or even just like documenting process in a written, document and things like that. How do you combine them into like one central place? Do you feel like you had to do, I don't know, maybe some sort of like a PDF document that explain, okay, in order for you to find out about X, Y, and Z information, go to X, or is it more look like does it look like a list, or how do you have them listed as a central PDF or a document?
Right. So, gosh, I could go really into detail. So obviously I kind of use the agile approach when I'm doing these things. So it's not like you start knowing the exact brief and the end in mind. It's sort of an organic
Mm-hmm.
thing. So with the agile approach, you sort of change as you go. So when I first started, I just documented things under sort of the client. So
Mm.
it would be sort of categorized under clients. Then I realized that obviously some processes like branding are the same for any client. So
Mm-hmm.
they should come out. So I started doing some categories, but in the end, I would say, long story short, I would put them in Dropbox paper. So basically a document that outlines a category of creativity. So
Okay.
instead of by client, it is now branding is one. So maybe HR is one, photography is one, website is one. And then in that list, all the links to the videos and other things are in there. So
Mm.
if you want to find anything, you would just search in that area and it would lead you to everything else. So as videos are created, and now right now, I'm not the only one making those videos. The whole team is doing it for each other as well.
Okay.
So they would link it in the document. So if we need to find it, they can go there. And if we replace it with like, new version,
Mm-hmm.
2020 version of, this new situation now.
Yeah.
So it takes time. It definitely did not start out and came out as a beautifully designed and well laid out plan, but it sort of organically grew as more and more things come in. You
Mm-hmm.
start putting them in order as they go. So the key is to do them as they go. I think if you try to tackle it all together at once, it's too much,
Yeah.
especially when obviously we have work to do, we have clients to manage. It's
Mm-hmm.
not something you can just like, I'm going to clear a weekend and do this. But it's something that it's a small habit you kind of have to do every day, and
Yeah.
then it will be successful and easy to be consistent. So
You
it's a
know, I,
habit actually.
Yeah, as you were saying all this, and I imagine someone just like, okay, let me just tackle all of these in the weekend. I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's got to be like quite an interesting thing to do on a weekend,
Yeah.
to tackle all these different processes and putting them in place, right? So, if there are like some sort of like tools that you're using, or best practices in general, can you share or recommend some of those for others so that they could not reconsider, how can they consider
Yeah.
those for their process?
Yeah. I think it I think you need to see how you like to consume information. because I like to read and write. I find that writing was the first thing I did. So all I did was write it in a document, as simple as we use Basecamp. So I would write it in a text document, and then it sort of transitioned into Dropbox paper for me. And then we use Loom for videos that came later when we had screens. So for me, I was always more comfortable writing it down first.
Mm-hmm.
There are occasions where I actually record the video and then write like key takeaways down as well, because I realized that my team members who are younger respond more to the video because it's easier for them. So I would start writing for myself, but then I would then record a video, because once you write things down, you sort of have your thoughts in order. So I
Mm-hmm.
actually write it down and then record a video if I want to. So I think find what makes it easy for you. I think some people are more comfortable with recording even just audio or video. So Loom's really great for that, and it's free. And yeah, for us, because we use Basecamp and Dropbox, we
Yeah.
use that, but those are paid. But you guys can just use anything, and as simple as Google Docs, and just start from one, and then just sort of grow from there.
Yeah, I feel like there are so many different tools out there, and I
Yeah,
almost feel like it doesn't really matter which tools you're using. I think you need
yeah.
to ask yourself, like,
You
okay,
don't need to be fancy at all. You don't need a
exactly.
special tool for this, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to start doing. I think the
Yeah.
process itself is the hard part. So don't worry about the tools yet.
Yes, exactly. You capture it very
Yeah.
well, Vanessa.
Yeah.
So I'm curious as well in terms of like how you typically, work in the very first couple of years on your own, and then you slowly, getting more team members to join you. You honestly used to be working on your own, right? And
Yes.
at some point, you finally realize, okay, I need to add team members to my team now as I
Yeah.
grow this company. What does it feel like for you when you first had to give up, control on a design and creative project, because you owned them for a very long time, and it was almost feel like it's your baby at first, right? And then you kind of like, oh, I'm gonna have to give this up and let others like take the lead on this. How did that feel? And tell us the experience on that one.
Terrible. Well, I guess I do love being in control, especially, when you have your creative eye, and especially when you have clients that have been with you for years. So it's very hard to pass it on, but I do realize that after a while of doing the same things over and over again, I myself want to do something different as well. And the only
Mm-hmm.
way to do that is to pass the existing work or what I normally do to other people. So I think everybody would find it really hard, and I found it hard. And there are even moments where you will. I'm always tempted to take the design back when there's an iteration or something like that, right? And you're like, let me do
Mm-hmm.
it. I can do it better. Or maybe my designer is struggling, and I'll be like, oh, maybe I should just do it. I just do it this time. But I have to really consciously stop myself and say, look, this is a teaching moment. You're not supposed to do it for them. You're supposed to teach them how to do it better
Yeah.
so that you'll be better off. So I think it's definitely a process. And I feel it's like growing up, and you're a freelancer. There are a lot of things that you just do your way and you don't really think too much. It just comes naturally, right? When you're freelancing for a few
Mm-hmm.
years and you already know. So to have to tell somebody to do it is quite difficult, but it's quite liberating in the end when you see them do it successfully. And I think you have to set them up for success as well.
Yeah.
I think some people would want to be in control and intentionally accidentally self-sabotage and say, oh, their
Mm-hmm.
design is not good, I can do it better. And and then you take the project back. So yeah, it's always, for a while I had that like balance to play, but
Mm-hmm.
now my team is really good.
Was it hard though for you when you feel like, okay, none of my designers understand where my vision is for this project, and how do you really communicate that vision? Because I feel like from one designer to another, it can be really challenging to get into one
Yeah,
page
for
and
sure.
understanding like
Yeah.
this is where we're going with this
Yeah.
concept or this creative. How do you make sure that the the younger designer or the other team member that you have understand your vision and they can execute that? When do you feel that it's okay? It's like, okay, it's not 100% um exactly match what I envision this project to be, but I think this works. When did that happen?
I think that happened when I think I had to accept responsibility that what they produced is because of my brief. So if they did not produce something I wanted to see, it was because I didn't, obviously something in my communication where somewhere went wrong and they did not get what I was, trying to communicate. So
Yeah.
I think when I realized that, and I consciously tried to improve my communication skills. How do I brief this person? How do I make them understand? How do I teach them the I? It's always, and it's hard. But I think it took me a while too. I think at least a year to figure out, oh, this is exactly, this is how I need to tell my designers. And everyone understands things differently as well. So each designer to the other one, you have to brief them differently, although you want the same thing, but you talk to them differently. So I had to learn a lot about that. And I think when I managed to do that, it's a lot smoother.
Oh, that's fantastic.
The right hire helps as well, of course.
Of course, right hire is honestly
Yes.
super important. I know
That's
here,
the first.
yes,
I should
from
have said
what
that first. Yeah.
I heard about, like, people here for the bigger companies, the way they treat their HR and recruiting new people, it's very extensive, and that's for a very good reason, because you want to invest in this, right talent, right? It's not like hiring is cheap, because it's really is very expensive, and it can be. And if you made that mistake hiring the wrong type of talent or the wrong team member, it could cost you a ton. So maybe while we are at this one particular topic, Vanessa, share with us, like, how do you hire? Like, when, well, not when, how do you hire? And then, like, what point do you feel like, okay, this is the right fit for us?
Yep. Oh, I've got a good story because I've made so many mistakes. So initially, what I thought, so one of these hires that I went through is, I thought, all right, I need somebody that is a senior designer. So I need someone with experience, because so that they can also lead the junior designers. It's just not me teaching them all. So I need someone that's, so I went around looking for it. And the mistake I've done was I hired based on portfolio and not by personality. So that was what I realized, that the designer could be good, but if they're not gelling well with the culture, the team, and even the work style that we have, it won't work. So in this instance, I hired a very experienced designer who was 10 years older than me. And she was good, but she came from a very established company. And she went into sort of the way we work, which is remote, flexible hours, timed hours. So she was so not used to it, and she felt it was really isolating, because she was already close to 50 and have been in corporate all her life. So she couldn't really adapt to our style. And I made the mistake of assuming anyone would just love the way we work. Oh, who doesn't want to work from home and have flexible hours? So I realized, well, some people don't want that kind of structure. They need structure, and they want to see other people in the office. So what I realized then was, the key is to hire someone for their personality first, as in their culture needs to gel well with yours. You kind of need to be on the same wavelength. You kind of need to have the same design taste as well, actually. So it's a lot easier when you're briefing and they already know, because you guys like the same things and sort of the same style. So once I realized that, and I made that more of a priority to ask the person sort of their taste, and I also did design tests so that I know what their taste is. So that made it easier. And I think I made that one mistake, and after that it's pretty good. After that it's been smoother, I would say. So
that's fantastic.
You keep learning.
I
I'm
bet,
still learning.
That's a really good like method, though, to hire based on if there is an alignment between you and this new person, like, culture wise, and then a taste in terms of like design style as well, right? So I think you had a really refined processes already, and I'm so happy that you're sharing all of this with us. Last question before we go. As a fellow creative agency, like for myself, I also feel sometimes it's so hard to decide when it comes to owning myself as a designer, working on creative projects and things like that, but also as a business owner, because you still have to lead your agency, you still have to lead your team, and figuring out all this like business development side for your team and your own agency, right? Now, how do you actually fire yourself as a designer and rehire yourself to be the business owner for your own agency, Vanessa?
Right. So it took time, but I realized that I had to replace myself. And I also realized that there is no one person that can replace myself. It would need to be 3 to 4 people to replace everything that I do. So I had to find those people one by one, train them up, and then it's time. But I feel like I was already there, but I couldn't fire myself. I couldn't let go. I was meddling in the design stuff and all that when I should have let go. So I think it's really hard, because as a creative, you really love design. I mean, that's why you started the business in the first place. But at the end of the day, if you do want to run, I guess, a studio or agency, I learned that you do have to let go, and it's a decision you can make. If you really wanted to do the creative stuff, then you can stay small, freelance, and do that. But if you want to do more creative work and grow and all that, then that's part of the growing up, I guess. I feel like I keep growing up, leveling up as I go. So I find that, when I first freed my admin position, so things like emails and admin stuff, and then the design stuff was the last to go, because that's the hardest to sort of pass on to the team. But once that is done, then it is time for me to be a business owner. So I think I've done that earlier this year, where I've sort of told the team just flat out, like, okay, I'm not designing anymore, or I won't be sort of the major designer of a project. I will supervise, but it's time for me to, be hands off and see how you go. So
what a pressure.
So they're really nervous. No pressure. Yeah, but they're trying. So I think they try harder as well if you're not in it, because they have that backup. Oh, she's gonna do it and she'll do a good job. So when they know I'm not in it, then they're also, trying to rise up to the challenge, which is great to watch. Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. I feel like there's so much that you shared with us today. And thank you, Vanessa, for all the insights, all the experience sharing. And honestly, ladies and everyone who's watching this video, that is all for our interview with Vanessa Goh today. Please subscribe to our channel to watch more Women in Design Spotlight videos. Also, make sure to connect with both Vanessa Goh and myself online. We'll include the links on the description, and we hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!